Hello there guys, Bilbo10000 here, bringing you episode 15 of Rate Their Chances Season 2, the series where we rate the chances for potential newcomers making it into the DLC Fighter Pack roster for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, as inspired by the thread of the same name over on Smashboards, which you can find in the description. Haven't checked out the previous episode in the series? Make sure to give them a watch, as last episode we rated Master Chief, Frisk from Undertale, and more. Definitely worth a watch, link in the top right corner. So, with just 2 DLC slots left and a whole host of wanted characters to join the roster, it's getting extremely tough to predict who is likely and who isn't, but this won't stop me from trying. And today, we've got 4 new characters to rate, all of which have never been rated on Rate Their Chances before. And all were suggested by the YouTube comments from episode 14. Shout out to all of you. Today's characters we will be rating are Morrigan Ainsland from the Darkstalkers series, suggested by A. Beloin. Quote from Cave Story, suggested by Online Nobody. Sylux from the Metroid series, suggested by Philip Cross. And Monokuma from the Danganronpa series, suggested by my good friend Cyberchamp MC. A nice mix of characters to look at today, though whether any of them have a shot at those last 2 DLC slots, we'll have to wait and see. But remember, if you enjoy this video and you want to see more, please be sure to click that subscribe button and hit the notification bell to be notified of all future uploads. And be sure to leave your suggestions for future character ratings in the comments section down below. And remember that this series does not reflect the views of Sakadai, the Smash team, the fans, or anyone except my own researched opinion. And if you happen to disagree with any of my ratings, that's cool. Just share why in the comments below. Let's keep it civil though if we can. Without further ado, let us begin. First up, we have a highly requested character in Morrigan Ainsland, a succubus from the Darkstalkers series, owned by Capcom. I won't pretend to know much about this character's backstory, as I'll probably get things wrong, so instead I'd like to focus on what I do know about Morrigan. She hails from a series of traditional 2D fighter games similar to Capcom's other property, Street Fighter, and has made guest appearances in the Marvel vs. Capcom franchise as well, helped by the fact that she is one of the main protagonists and an anti-hero of her own franchise, arguably the most recognizable character from Darkstalkers at a glance. Naturally, because she comes from a fighting title already, she has a fairly pre-built moveset that could be translated into Smash's style of gameplay with minimal effort, from her teleportation, ability to fly, inhuman strength, as well as her ability to create attacks like a Soul Fist and Shadow Blade. She's got quite the range of abilities under her belt. Her big issue is that she needs to contend with her popularity, as well as the popularity of her franchise, in contrast to other Capcom properties of course. Something that I've learned over the last year of speculation is that if you want your character to get into Smash, you need to be loud, you need to be vocal, and you need to ensure that there is ample support for your character that could be noticed by developers. Morrigan hurts in this area, as while I do believe she has quite a bit of support, trust me I've seen the various BBTT threads on her that I haven't covered yet, the simple fact is, last year during the base roster speculation season, she was a non-factor. I didn't see anybody requesting her in any major Smash forums, and I didn't see anybody requesting her in my old Rate Their Chances Season 1 comment sections either. The focus was very much on other characters, and even now, if we assume Capcom is getting another rep, which I do feel is likely, Darkstalkers and its franchise just doesn't compare to juggernauts like Resident Evil. Taking a look at Nick's Universe's BBTT thread on Morrigan, for those not in the know, BBTT stands for Billy Bade Twitter Theory, and is a series I do on this channel where users submit their theories as Twitter threads for me to cover and give my opinions on. Nix discusses the game's popularity, and states in one tweet that Darkstalkers Resurrection was one of the top-selling PlayStation Network games in 2013, and mentioned that the series had a major impact in Japan while it was active. My issue with that specific tweet, though, and with Darkstalkers Resurrection, which was the last game in the franchise, is that on April 11th, 2013, GameSpot posted an article called Darkstalkers Resurrection fails to meet Capcom's sales targets, with the first line of the article being Darkstalkers Resurrection hasn't managed to sell enough copies to be successful, Capcom has said. And that was the last game in the series as well. That's really bad. The fact that Capcom as a company effectively killed this franchise by stating it didn't do well enough with its last attempt at a revival should tell us that Capcom won't want to focus on this series when moving forwards in Smash. It's the biggest death blow that a character in their series could have. As such, Morrigan Einsland gets a chance score of 0%. Her series is, as of right now, dead, and her only appearances that keep her going are in the Marvel vs. Capcom games, which is all fine and dandy, but not when your home franchise is dead in the water. There's no way a company like Capcom would put their focus on Darkstalkers compared to their bigger franchises, which would definitely be more marketable to today's audience via the DLC formula. As for a want score, Morrigan gets a 50%. My usual score for anyone I'm completely neutral towards. I'd like to see a female fighter in this DLC pack, I won't lie, but I'm not charmed by Morrigan's ways myself. She'd be interesting, but if you really wanna, start drumming up hype. Make Twitter accounts. Get this character out there. Ridley, K. Rool, and Banjo did it, so can you. Next up, we've got the father of indie characters in the gaming scene, Quote, the main character of Cave Story, arguably one of the first indie games to really go mainstream. Whenever you think of indie titles, Cave Story and Quote will always be up there, having withstood the test of time, similarly to Shantae as an example. Now, Quote has never been rated in this series before, yet I have brought him up in the past when discussing other indie characters like Shovel Knight, Sans, and Shantae, as he definitely fits in that specific niche of character. Many attest that if we're going to get our first official indie character in Smash, that Quote's legacy and position as one of the founding indies would make him a viable candidate. But with the base roster now out and only 2 slots left for DLC, is that really the case? And is he all that likely? Well, let's start with whether he'd bring anything new with his moveset. Quote is armed with a large variety of weaponry and tools, including his base gun, the Polar Star, an area-damaging bubble gun called Bubbleen, a jetpack called a Booster, and there's more as well. But what makes Quote potentially unique is a mechanic from his game that allows him to level up his weapons. You see, if you defeat an opponent in Cave Story, they drop items that, when picked up, grant experience to your weapon currently equipped, and with enough experience, your weapon levels up and gains more power and effect. But this is a risk-reward system, as the level caps at 3, and any damage you take causes you to lose EXP, meaning these upgrades aren't permanent. This is a very unique mechanic that certainly fits in line with the idea that all DLC fighters will have some sort of unique gameplay style. Joker has Arsene, the hero has the command menu, Banjo and Kazooie at a glance have that feather counter from their trailer. This ability of Quotes would fit right in, and having gameplay that encourages you to avoid getting hit while doing damage could lead to a very interesting metagame. But as I mentioned before, Quote's biggest hurdle is his status as an indie cult classic. With just 2 slots of DLC left, and having seen 3 slots go to massive companies like Atlus, Square Enix, and Microsoft, I'm left extremely doubtful that Quote's creator will have been contacted, despite his game's appearance on Switch and Nintendo consoles. Honestly, I feel like Quote's legacy is more popular than his actual character popularity. He didn't get a Spirit and Ultimate unlike Shantae, and he didn't get an assist trophy like Shovel Knight, both of whom had more support in the Ballot era, and who are just more popular with today's gaming audience. Quote may be the granddad of indie characters, but age doesn't mean you're the most likely to get in. Look at Joker in Persona 5, or the hero from Dragon Quest XI is a prime example of this. Joker and the Luminary are the most popular incarnations of their series' protagonists in this moment, even if some would agree and argue that Persona and Dragon Quest have more popular protagonists from the past that maybe deserve that spot a bit more. The same argument could be made for indie characters, which is why I feel Quote definitely falls short in comparison to the other indie reps on the table. Also, his Smashboards thread only has 16 supporters, which is rather tragic for a character that many seem to hold on a pedestal for a long time. With all of this in mind, Quote gets a chance score of 5%. While Quote may have a rough time getting into Smash, I can't deny that his position as the first real breakout indie star, Shantae was created beforehand, but didn't really break out as a character until after Cave Story's release. And his game's presence on Nintendo platforms keep him from falling out of the game entirely. As for a once score though, Quote gets 60%. I've never played Cave Story, but from the research I did on Quote today, I think I might just have to give the game a try and see what all the fuss is about. Next up, we've got Sylux, a character who debuted in Metroid Prime Hunters for the DS, only to then get set up as the potential antagonist of Metroid Prime 4. Because of this, Metroid fans have jumped on him as a potential newcomer to Smash Bros., seeing as we've now got Dark Samus and Ridley, two of the other major antagonists of the franchise, already in Smash. Now, straight off the bat, I'm going to admit I have absolutely no knowledge on Sylux as a character, so off to his Smashboards thread to educate myself, I guess. Starting off, Sylux is a very unknown character. His backstory is unknown, aside from his hatred of the Galactic Federation and of Samus Aran, the main protagonist of the Metroid series. As far as a moveset goes, Sylux has the experimental electricity weapon known as the Shock Coil, which is able to steal life from opponents, and if Sakurai wanted to go extremely deep into Sylux's moveset, he could use the weapons of other hunters from Metroid Prime Hunters as a way to really represent that game. But as far as his chances go, I'm not so sure about this moment in time. Sylux, no doubt, is a character who will have a major focus in Metroid Prime 4, and will finally get freshed out with a real backstory and potentially an entirely new moveset. I wouldn't be surprised if the Smash team wants to wait until Prime 4 is released before choosing to adapt Sylux, so as to more accurately portray his potential new design. The issue though? Prime 4's entire project got restarted just this year. Because of this, Prime 4 is now probably years away from release, and this would throw a massive spanner in the works for Sylux as a promotional pick. On top of this, why base the character on his current DS design when they can wait a few years, see how his character is received in Prime 4, and then consider adding him in for a future DLC pack if that's on the table, or save him for the base roster of whatever Smash game comes after Ultimate? It makes no sense to release this character now when his real starring role isn't coming for another 2 to 3 years due to development rebooting. Though it is worth noting that Sylux is one of the few Metroid characters to not yet have a spirit in-game, which as many have noted is quite suspicious given he's being set up as a major player in the future of the franchise, though this could easily be a Porky situation where we may be getting our hopes up for nothing. At the end of the day though, I have to give Sylux a chance score of 15%. There's no denying that he is pretty much the only representative from Metroid, aside from those currently in Smash, that I would say has a feasible shot. And he definitely has a lot of people asking about him now that Ridley and Dark Samus have made it into the game, and I'd say he's a lot more realistic of a pick from Nintendo's backlog of characters as well. But with his starring game getting a major delay in reboot, I think Sylux is in a very odd position right now. As for a want score, Sylux gets a 75%. Seems like a cool character that I'd like to learn more about, and his moveset and design are right up my alley. Hopefully Metroid Prime 4 does this character justice. Last up, we've got the Bear of Despair, the Headmaster of Disaster. It's Monokuma! This murderous mascot from the Danganronpa series has become an icon of gaming in the last few years, as the craze of Danganronpa has swept teenagers everywhere, because who doesn't love the idea of a killing game with a cute cuddly bear who's extremely bipolar to the point where it becomes extremely endearing. In all seriousness though, Danganronpa as a franchise blew up in the last 3 years or so, to the point where people who had never given visual novels or Spike Chunsoft's original titles the time of day finally got around to appreciating their series. And Monokuma is at the forefront of Danganronpa. He is the series mascot and the most recognizable character from the games. Not only that, but he has an extremely multi-layered personality that really connects with players on a level that they can enjoy. So firstly, what are his pros? Well, he's from a genre that really hasn't been represented in Smash Bros. Before, that being the visual novel genre. This is a heavily popular style of game in Japan, and has recently becoming more popular here in the West as well. Though Monokuma would be competing against Phoenix Wright if we're going by genre representation, which would be an uphill battle considering Phoenix Wright has the longevity to counter Monokuma in terms of seniority. Sakurai himself has expressed interest in the works of Kodaka, the creator of the Danganronpa franchise, similarly to how he was a fan of Persona 5, which, as we all know, resulted in Joker joining the roster. Obviously, if Sakurai is aware of your franchise, you have a better shot than not. The fanbase for Danganronpa has also grown exponentially over the past few years, going from a title almost nobody knew anything about, to mainstream popularity among the gaming community, to the point where one of the series' characters was the most popular cosplayed character from 2018 at cons. That's pretty big. And of course, being developed by Spike Chunsoft, the company has great ties with Nintendo in the past, with series like Zero Escape, 999 on the DS, and Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, to name a few, making their way onto Nintendo platforms. Though on the flip side, Danganronpa itself doesn't tick that box. As a con for the character, there are no Danganronpa titles released for Nintendo consoles, which could be considered a major issue when discussing whether the character will be coming to Smash. Sakurai has stated in the past that a character or series has needed to appear on Nintendo consoles before including them, and yes, even Persona counts due to its spin-off status of Shin Megami Tensei, which has appeared on Nintendo consoles, as well as Persona Q Labyrinth. Unless Danganronpa gets a Switch port, this is a major issue hanging over Monokuma that will most likely keep him from getting into the game. But one thing I cannot deny is that for Danganronpa, this is a now or never situation. The franchise peaked in popularity once V3 was released in 2017, and since then we haven't seen much from the franchise to imply that it will be continuing, at least with mainline titles. If Monokuma is left out for too long, the franchise could peter out and his popularity would wane, making Sakurai and the Smash team less likely to include the character moving forwards. The other issue I have with Monokuma is his moveset. Monokuma is a brutal character, known for his sheer brutality with the series' patented executions. But even in Ultra Despair Girls, a spin-off title, the main Monokuma enemies mainly use their claws and teeth to cause damage. Monokuma would need to dig deep into his franchise to find a full moveset that would really work for the character, and I worry about whether that is easier said than done. Sakurai has worked miracles with movesets before, but Monokuma doesn't have a lot of built-in moves just based on his appearance and abilities alone, aside from his claws. And the big issue with Monokuma, and I think Danganronpa is general, is whether it's a franchise that's going to come and go as a fad, or whether it will stand the test of time and still be talked about in 4 to 5 years. For a DLC character, you gotta come from a franchise that's well received for the best chance of selling copies. And if Monokuma doesn't happen now, I don't think he's happening at all. With that in mind, I give Monokuma a 5% chance score. What absolutely kills him for me is his lack of representation on the Switch. If a Danganronpa port gets announced, this chance score would be much higher, but right now, he's basically a Sony character. You'd have more luck getting him into PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale 2. As for a want score, Monokuma gets an 85%. Danganronpa is a franchise I absolutely love. I even made a game show called The Elimination Game, links in the top right corner, with inspirations from Danganronpa's executions. And Monokuma is one of the better characters from the franchise. I just rather not get my hopes up here when they aren't very high to begin with. Thank you everyone for watching this video. If you guys enjoyed this episode of Rate Their Chances, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I want to give a massive shout out to all of my Patreons over on Patreon. I did that thing where I mixed up the words again, that's okay. You guys are awesome and your support means the world. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please leave a like, please share it with your friends, and leave your thoughts on who you would like to see me rate next down below. I'm gonna head off, I got stuff to do, but thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye!